The guys, NBA TNT, Jake and I, the NBA on TNT, Kenny, Charles, Shaq, we watch that show with Ernie on a regular basis. We've missed Ernie Johnson.
Yeah, honestly.
Ernie's back, and all of a sudden, there's a big controversy about the Utah Jazz. So while you listen to this clip, let me just ask you straight away. Are the Utah Jazz championship caliber? Think about that while you listen to this clip from the NBA on TNT.
Remember last year they got jobbed because Bogdanovic didn't play in the playoffs. They would have beat Denver last year if Bogdanovic had played.
The only reason, I don't know how Shaq feels, but proven commodities, usually win in the league. That's all. So it hasn't been a proven commodity. Typically, I just haven't seen it unless it's an assembling of superstar players. Teams come out of nowhere and win the championship.
Very good.
And they have not taken those steps.
Next step after that is to make it past the second round.
Right.
The next step.
Yeah, they've lost in the first round.
Knocked out in the first round their last two. Yeah, but I guarantee you that won't happen this year.
You go from getting first round knockout to championship?
Yeah, no. Come on, Chuck.
See, that's what I'm saying. And that's the question, and I think if you're a Utah Jazz fan, I think you need to be brutally honest about this question. Is this team really ready to win an NBA championship? And here's point blank, here's where I'm at with it. The answer is no, they're not. And here's why. One, they're not very difficult to defend. And in the NBA playoffs, it becomes half-court execution, man v man defense. And if you push the Jazz out to the three-point line, if you push up to the three-point stripe, they become a one-dimensional team that has to find a way to get Rudy Gobert involved in the offense. And I think what you see on nights where the Jazz struggle is you have defenses that are pushing them out to the three-point stripe, and they're following Rudy Gobert. And the mentality, and Jake, you tell me if I'm wrong,
yeah.
I think the mentality around the NBA is, let Rudy Gobert have his 20 and 15, and we're going to win the game. And I think you're seeing that manifest itself by teams really pressuring the three-point line and forcing the Jazz off their spots.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think we can all agree. Whether you disagree with this whole conversation or not, I think we can all agree here that if you as a defense are stopping Donovan or slowing him down, limiting him and what he does, and you're taking away the Jazz's opportunity to really get hot from three, and Rudy is really the only one giving you like really big time production, you're going to have a good opportunity to beat the Jazz. And I think that again, this goes back to what we always reference in terms of examples of seeing this throughout the season. We saw this exact thing in Philly. We saw this. They pushed out aggressively to the three-point line, and they're fortunate enough to have one of the best centers in the league on their team in Joel Embiid. So, for them, it really wasn't even a hard thing, to push out and make Joel play defense on Rudy. That was not difficult. But I think at the end of the day, what really concerns me about the Jazz and why I think this is such a relevant question is because, when you get to the postseason, yes, it's all half court. But I think the way the Jazz play, they're so heavily reliant on the three-point shot that if that's not going for them, they don't really have another thing that can propel them forward in a game. You notice in a lot of games over not the last five, I'd say the last five they've done a better job of this, but before that, they had a bad habit of getting behind in the first half. And, when I say behind, I'm talking about down, double digits, 10, 15 points. And then going into the third, you got to pick it up. You got to come back. You're not coming back against the Clippers, bro. You're not coming back against, the Nuggets, let's say, or whatever team it is that you're seeing yourself facing in the second round. So are they ready to win a championship? No, I don't think they're in the most ideal, best position to win a championship right now. Can they get to the NBA Finals? Yes. Do I expect them to get to the NBA Finals? You're damn right I do. They should get there.
Wow.
They should get there. But I don't think that they're going to go ahead and win a championship this year with that roster. That's honestly what I think will happen.
So you're calling your NBA Finals shot for the Jazz. They're going...
I think they will make an NBA Finals appearance. My biggest concern, though, is that I don't think that... I think, here's what I think. If they get to the NBA Finals, they are going to be so tired as a team because of the battles that they've had to go through to get there that I don't think that they're going to be able to win the championship. And the reason I say that is because if you look at their roster, think about this. How many times in a game, when you watch regular season basketball for the Jazz, do they get the easy transition three or the easy layup or just, it's probably 15, 20 times a night where they're just getting that easy possession, that easy transition bucket. You know, whether it's a three or layup or whatever, they're getting that. In the postseason, you don't get that. You have to execute in the half court. So Rudy not being able to shoot the basketball, Bogdanovic not being able to do much more than really shoot if he's got a good defender on him. For the most part, like you put a good defender on Bogdanovic, he becomes one-dimensional.
Right.
So I don't think that in the half court, the Jazz have enough from a roster standpoint to go ahead and beat the best Eastern Conference team that's going to show up in the NBA Finals after they've gone ahead and battled all these teams in the West.
Good morning, James Knight on YouTube says, love the show, guys, from Melbourne, Australia. Boy,
Let's go.
Man.
Dude,
we're
the international scene, bro.
Yeah, it's been massive. We're huge Australia fans. Went to Brisbane. Can't wait to get back once all the travel nonsense is over.
I still maintain 4X Gold is the best beer that I've ever had.
Yeah, and you can't really get it easily
you
here
can't
in the
get it here.
States.
You can't. You'd have to import it, and it's super expensive.
Yeah, James Knight also says, always anti-Jazz. Let's talk about Phoenix. Major fall last night in your man book. Yeah, last night the Phoenix Suns went to Boston to die.
Yep.
And Devin Booker, I don't know, the last 2 weeks he is not, what's the right way to say this? Devin Booker over the last 2 weeks has not played smart basketball. He was in foul trouble off the bounce last night. Kemba Walker dropped 32. The Suns lose 99-86, and all of a sudden the Celtics are 9-2 in their last 11. And frankly, I don't. And maybe this is too strong. Are the Phoenix Suns sputtering? It kind of feels like they are.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, and this is what Jazz fans will enjoy. This, in my opinion. So the thing that I think that the Jazz do have over the Suns is they do have more experience. They are a more seasoned team. They have more veterans on that team. Not to say they're old, they just have more experience. Again, we always talk about, NBA on TNT last night was talking about, oh, well, you didn't have Bogdanovic in the bubble last year. Yeah, you might have lost in the bubble, but hey, what did the bubble give you? All this experience, right? Now you know what it takes. You know what you have to bring. You know what the expectation is. So when you're in the regular season and you're the Phoenix Suns and you went 8-0 in the bubble last year and you didn't make the postseason, now you find yourself second chasing this Jazz team and you're running out of gas. And so I think when, yesterday we talked about the Devin Booker superstar thing.
Yes.
I look at the rest of their roster. They've got a nice team. The problem is they don't know how to win. There's a difference between not knowing how to win and not being ready to win, in my opinion. The Suns just simply don't know how to win.
I feel like the Phoenix Suns are where the Jazz were last year.
Exactly.
And I think what Shaq said on TNT last night, and if you're just tuning into the show here live on YouTube, we're talking about the NBA on TNT last night saying that the Utah Jazz are not ready to win a championship. Something that we've openly talked about on this show. And we're not, a lot of people ask us, oh, you guys hate the Jazz. No, but we keep it real on this show.
Yeah.
And what we've said from the beginning is this team doesn't have a number two option. And I think that's exactly what this conversation from TNT last night was about. And I'm going to play it again in a minute. But they essentially said, Charles Barkley said, if Bojan Bogdanovic played last year, they beat the Nuggets. That might be true. But he didn't, so they didn't.
Candies and nuts.
Yeah, and the question is, who's the guy that's not going to be available this year? Well, it probably won't be Donovan because he's hurt now with an ankle sprain, so he should be well rested going into the postseason. My biggest concern has always been, well, what happens with Mike Conley? Will Mike Conley, who we're seeing them rest and load manage on a regular basis, be available fully throughout the postseason? I don't know. We'll see. But my biggest complaint with the Jazz is, I think they're a one-man band. I think it's Don and everybody else. I think this league is built on teams that have athletic guards that can shoot the three and get to the rack. What do the Jazz struggle with? Be honest. As a Jazz fan, I'm just asking you to be objective. Who are the teams that give the Jazz trouble? Elite bigs? Well, there's not many of those, right? Joel Embiid, Okay, great. The Sixers are going to be a problem for the Jazz. Well,
Jokic.
let's hope that's a problem because you get to the NBA Finals then.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic is an interesting one, right? Somebody compared Nikola Jokic on our YouTube channel to Greg Ostertag yesterday. Guy, did you see Greg Ostertag play? Nikola Jokic is Michael Jordan compared to Greg Ostertag. But my point is, this is a league built on guards that shoot threes and attack the rim. That particular skill set tortures the Jazz. So think about that, be objective, and now listen to what the guys on TNT said last night about the Utah Jazz winning a championship.
Remember last year they got job because Bogdanovic didn't play the playoff. They would have beat Denver last year if Bogdanovic had played.
The only reason, I don't know how Shaq feels, but proven commodities, usually win in the league. That's all. So it hasn't been a proven commodity. Typically, I just haven't seen it unless it's an assembling of superstar players. Teams come out of nowhere and win the championship.
Very good.
And they have not taken those steps.
Next step after that is to make it past the second round.
Right.
The next step.
Yeah, they've lost in the first round.
Locked out in the first round their last two.
Yeah, but I guarantee you that won't happen this year.
You go from getting first round knockout to championship?
Yeah, no, come on, Chuck.
It's a great
That's
point.
my point.
It's a great point.
And we've talked a lot about that. There is a maturation process. And you can point to any dynasty. I can point to the Heat with LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
Never made it to a dynasty, won multiple rings, but what happened the first time out the gate?
Mm-hmm.
They lost. You look at Kobe and Shaq's Lakers. What happened? Kobe shot air balls when he was a rookie, and he had to learn how to take big shots, and they had to learn how to win. And they wind up, they lose in Detroit that one year. I look at the Chicago Bulls. Look at what the Bulls did. The Bulls had to go through the Pistons. They had to go through the Knicks. They had to go through the Pacers. Jordan hits the shot on Elo. Then they got to beat the Pacers. They lose to Detroit. It's a maturation process. So when they got to the NBA Finals, the Chicago Bulls were bulletproof because they were ready to win. They had been down the road. I don't think the Jazz have been down the road. And I agree with what Kenny and Shaq said. You don't go from not winning a playoff series, getting knocked out in the first round the last 2 years. They haven't really won. They haven't really made a playoff run in over 13 years. I think it was 2007 is the last time. You don't go from getting knocked out in the first round back-to-back years to winning an NBA championship. Like, give me the history. Point to a team that in recent times has done that. And I'm telling you, it doesn't happen because it's really difficult to win when you don't know what it feels like to win. And the Jazz don't know what that feeling is like. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it likely? I don't think it's likely. Real quick, give me your number one reason why the Jazz won't win a title.
Yeah, I think the number one core reason why they won't win a title is their roster build. The way that they're built limits them in the way that they can play the game. So, my whole thing with the Jazz has always been that when you take this Jazz team and you match them up against, let's say, the Clippers, right? Number one, the Clippers have multiple ways to beat you. When it's Kawhi, Paul George, Pat Bev on the floor, you've got Morris on the floor. You've got all these guys on the floor that can get their own bucket at any single time. That allows you to attack the Jazz defense in a number of different ways, depending on what the Jazz are giving you. So that's problem number one right there. They don't have enough on their roster defensively to hold back a lot of these elite Western Conference teams.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of comments coming in on this. Let's see. Mina Gray says, watching in the Philippines, the Suns were tired. They played back-to-back games.
Yeah,
that could be. I mean, look at the Sixers last night.
Here's the thing, though. I don't disagree with the tired thing, but it's not an excuse at this time of the year. You don't have time to be tired. You don't have, if you're the Phoenix Suns, you do not have the luxury. You've not earned the right to say, hey, we're tired. We're gonna, we're gonna blow this game. You don't have that. You don't have that right. You haven't earned that. You don't have the time. The Jazz are gonna put you away now because they're gonna go and beat the Timberwolves back to back.
They better beat the Timberwolves back to back.
And then what's gonna happen is the Suns are gonna drop one of these next two. They're gonna be down 3, and the season's over at that point. You're not catching the number one seed at that point.
Yeah, the Suns, the Jazz are way too good to go further back than you are right now. And I think what you're seeing is in the West, you're already 2 games back.
Yeah.
Now it's on the Utah Jazz to put their foot on the gas and end any hope that the Suns have of winning the number 1 seed, which, by the way, I think probably ended already.
Because the problem is that, yeah, you're going to see the Jazz again if you're the Suns one last time, but even if you win that game, it's still not good enough.
It's almost meaningless.
It's meaningless. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I think, and that's why this back-to-back with Minnesota, and I know people are going to tell me I'm crazy. These are 2 must-win games.
Yeah.
If you are championship caliber right now, if you are a team in the Utah Jazz that you believe you're ready to win a ring, you will torch the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Only you're not going to. And I think it's going to be tooth and nail because they're built to make your life very difficult. And this first one, which is tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Here in Salt Lake, I think is a huge game. Okay, home court advantage. That Monday game in Minneapolis, that's one you got to win. And then I'll tell you, that Wednesday game in Sacramento is going to be difficult because that's not the easiest travel grind in the world.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to come back to Utah for a night. You're going to fly right from Minneapolis to Sacramento, I would think. This is a real tester road trip.
Yep.
Because it's Minnesota at home, Minnesota on the road, Sacramento on the road, Phoenix on the road. There's a chance that you win all 4 of those games. Mm-hmm. If you're a championship caliber team right now, you win all 4 of those games. Illert Gannett, good morning, bud. What's up? He goes, we will lose. Chuck guaranteed that Utah will win. Well, Charles Barkley oftentimes gets a couple of things wrong. Let's see. Mina Gray, James Knight says, was Toronto an exception to the proven commodity? No, Toronto was not an exception because they had a guy who had multiple rings in Kawhi Leonard.
They went and got it.
They went and got the guy to win a championship. And if you think about the moment in that year, mm-hmm. when Toronto won the NBA championship, what do you remember? I remember one shining moment. Mm-hmm. Kawhi Leonard bouncing the ball off the rim 37 times.
Is this the dagger?
To beat the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 7. Mm-hmm. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's what everybody remembers.
Kawhi Leonard was the proven commodity. He was a player that was ready to win. So,
but think about it,
James, hang on, James, I don't think you're wrong, but here's the question I would ask you. Is Donovan Mitchell where Kawhi Leonard was when Kawhi Leonard went to Toronto, The answer is clearly not. This is a guy that was a polished offensive player who went to Toronto after winning rings. Donovan hasn't felt that feeling yet. Mm-hmm. And I think when Donovan Mitchell wins a ring, I think what Donovan Mitchell needs, he needs that Kawhi Leonard moment. Give me the ball, get the hell out of the way, and let me go hit this game-winning shot in a clincher. Let me go hit a huge shot in the playoffs to win a game. A signature moment. That's what Donovan Mitchell is missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing all I was going to say about the Raptors is that look at their roster construction. Look at why they went and got Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. What were they missing? They were missing the wing threat that Kawhi Leonard brought to their team. They had Kyle Lowry. They had Fred VanVleet. They had lost. Think about it. They had lost DeMar, who filled that wing scorer role.
Yes.
You lose DeMar, what do? You go and add Kawhi Leonard. And what do you know? That signing, by the way, won you an NBA championship. So that's why you can go back, listen to the tape on our channel at the NBA trade deadline, and listen to those shows. We specifically talked about how not signing really anybody of consequence is going to come back and get the Jazz, and that's where this starts to show.
And by the way, Pat makes a really good point. Pat says, you guys have been on this train all season long. I give you credit for being consistent. Maybe Jazz fans are pissed that you're negative, but the negativity isn't on purpose. It's just the truth.
Thank you.
I think you're exactly right. We have not wavered on this opinion. And what did we say? And we were talking about don't call me Bradley Beal.
Beal.
It's Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal. That kind of player are who the Jazz are missing. They need a number 2 option to Donovan Mitchell. Mike, who, by the way, is a noted Knicks fan, makes a great point. The Knicks and the Jazz are on a similar trajectory. Although the Jazz are more talented, the Knicks could easily be a matchup nightmare for anybody in the playoffs.
I agree with that. Matchup-wise, they could be a problem.
Yes.
I think we need to be – I want to clarify, though, that I personally think that the Jazz are just an outright better team than the Knicks.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think
And
that
I think
in
that's his
question.
point. The Jazz are exponentially better than the Knicks.
Yeah.
But neither one has won a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one really has a championship player because none of them have won.
They have good players. That's a good point. They have good players, but not. Yeah.
And the point is the Jazz are not in much different than the Knicks in that you got to prove it now. And you got to go win a series. It's not good enough to get to the playoffs anymore. If you're the Knicks, it's good enough to get to the playoffs. And that's why I say they're on a similar trajectory. The Suns are on a similar trajectory.
Yeah.
But what did the Suns do? They went and got a championship experienced player in Chris Paul, who's been deep into the playoffs and suffered heartbreaking losses in Houston.
Yeah.
Really everywhere he's been. And my point is, they went and got better. They addressed their weakness. The Jazz didn't do that. And now it's time for the Jazz to not only get to the playoffs, they need to make a run. If they don't at least go to the NBA Finals, I think this season's very disappointing.
I would agree with that.
I mean, and I still maintain, if they go to the NBA Finals and lose, you're going to be incredibly disappointed. You'll be the number 1 seed in the West, run through the Western Conference. You go against probably, I would guess, Brooklyn at this point, although I think Philadelphia is incredibly dangerous.
Both of those are nightmare matchups, though, dude.
And by the way, you talk about that Kawhi Leonard Game 7 shot?
Yeah.
That's what galvanizing does. If you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, there's not going to be a moment that they're going to see in the playoffs that's too big for them because they've already had their heart ripped out of their chest.
And he made that shot in Joel Embiid's face.
In the corner, falling
Yeah.
out of bounds, it should never have gone in.
Yeah.
There's no way that ball did not go in.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. My point is, the Jazz just haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah.
And can they win a championship? Yes. Will they? Probably not. Is it likely? Probably not.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are fired up about this. Marcus says, keeping it real for sure. By the way, your Bulls suck. When did they become my Bulls?
I don't know. Maybe when Michael was put on the wall, there's this little guy back here that everybody can kind of see. That dude.
By the way, he's asking me what shoe I'm rocking today. Marcus says, probably the Bacon. Although my wife, this is the Air Max 90 NRG Bacon that Nike sent to me. By the way, as a gift, I appreciate that. Love this shoe. Have never put it on. You can see it's fresh as a baby's bottom, or maybe it won't, because this is how bad the shoe sickness is in this house. My wife texted me and said, "What shoes are you wearing?" You know what I replied? Anyone you want. Just go in the shoe room and grab them.
Yeah.
Because we actually have a room for all of our shoes. But yeah, you know what? Kobe White dunking last night. I actually have high hopes for this team. By the way, Bridges in Charlotte, good Lord, he dunked on Vucevic last night. And I can't stand watching Charlotte games on their home channel. Their announcer is a yeller and a screamer like, "Oh! My mind is blown!" Wait, listen. He this is what he'll do. Like Miles Bridges will dribble through his legs, and homie will go, "Oh! My mind is blown!" Oh my God, he has a jersey under his warm-up? Oh! My mind is blown! That's what the Charlotte announcers do, and it makes me crazy.
I think it's hilarious.
I hate that so much. It's a little bit of why David Locke with the Utah Jazz, their radio voice, like even pisses my wife off. A couple of weeks ago, we went to Super Chicks down in American Fork, and it was on a Jazz game night, and it was a Friday night. We went to Super Chicks. We're driving back listening to the Jazz game, and Locke it's like, they're sweeping the floor. It's unbelievable. And my wife's like, why is he yelling?
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
I'm like, why are you yelling? So anyway, my wife hates people that are loud, which is why we're probably not made to be together. Anyway, the point is, listen, I think it's just interesting the way that people analyze the Jazz. And I think Jazz fans get upset. Well, and this is a really good question. What do you think about Milwaukee? Great win against the Sixers. I just don't like the way Giannis plays. I don't like the way he plays either.
Yeah, so Milwaukee's sort of the opposite of the Jazz. They have the same problem though, where the Jazz have this issue where they rely way too much on the three, and it hurts them in postseason series because teams lock you down from three in the postseason. You got to execute in half court. But then the Bucks, the issue for them is that teams are now saying, hey, we're just going to set up a wall in the paint. We're not going to allow Giannis to drive, and you guys are going to have to beat us with a three. And last night, they made 23s. So last night, they win the game. But most nights, they're not making 23s. So that's their issue.
Yeah, and how do I say this? And if, again, I don't know where the European contingent of viewers on this show came from. We appreciate you. We're glad you're here. Mizuchi?
Who the fuck is that guy?
Mizuchi says he's watching in Belgium.
Let's go.
Appreciate you.
Hell yeah.
Eden Hazard still pisses me off. He's not with Chelsea Football Club. He says, lifelong Sixer fan. Mm-hmm. Do we win? I think you got a real chance this year.
Yeah, I do.
I think you have a real chance. Now, again, this is a team that I don't feel like got much better. I think this is the same team.
But here's the thing, though. They need to be healthy. Ben Simmons is out last night with illness, right? And then before, Joel was out for a while. So if they can be healthy and they're playing the Nets, let's say, in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that's one hell of a series. I think that's like a 7-gamer. I think that's everything you want.
Yeah. Miles Dastrup, good morning to you, says, will having D-Wade on staff help our prospects? Oh, I don't think there's any question his mentorship will make a difference.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely a genius, brilliant move to bring him in. I think when you have an owner in Mr. Smith that has said we want to diversify and we want to bring in all corners of the community, and he wants there to be an equality portion to this organization that's more than just lip service. I absolutely think Dwayne Wade's a great move. James Knight says, hey, come on, Monty, don't diss the 1280 guys. Love the Jingles show down under. Look, 1280 The Zone is a great radio station. I mean, it is the number one sports talk radio station in Salt Lake. I'm not dissing them at all. I'm just saying I like Boone and Locke. I listen to them more on the call than most because I listen to the radio call a lot. I like local radio calls in sports. Locke just tends to be over the top.
Yeah.
Like
it wears me out sometimes.
Yeah, he just tends to be way over the top.
Yeah.
And I like guys that are more down the middle. I grew up as a professional radio guy, sitting next to Chick Hearn during the Kobe and Shaq dynasty years in LA. When you grow up as a broadcaster listening to Chick Hearn, it's really tough to compare anybody else to Chick because Chick was fantastic.
What a legend, dude.
Yeah, and
first of all, just the fact that your name is Chick, you're a legend already. Like
Chicky
instant
baby.
legend, dude.
Chicky baby, it was amazing.
Instant.
Absolutely. Sean says, let's just say the Lakers in the 2000s were without Pau Gasol and Shaquille O'Neal. Would they have won 5 rings in 10 seasons? I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, no.
Who's the number 2?
Yeah.
Who
was Michael's number 2?
Scottie Pippen.
Scottie Pippen, right? And then you look at the rest of those teams, Steve Kerr hitting big shots.
It's the depth.
Horace
Grant.
Yeah, Horace Grant. Exactly.
John Paxson won the first championship now with all due respect to our Phoenicians, he hit one of the biggest threes in the history of the NBA to win a championship. And how did that go? Does anybody remember who passed him the ball? It was Horace Grant, who kicked it out to John Paxson, who dropped a huge 3 on Phoenix, and all of a sudden John Paxson's on the cover of every phone book in Chicago. Like, it was amazing. And I know we've talked about this a lot on this show, so I don't mean to be redundant, but if you think about all the great championship players in this league, when you had KG and Paul Pierce in Boston, you had Ray Allen.
With Rajon.
Yeah, with Rajon Rondo. Speaking of Ray Allen, LeBron and D. Wade in Miami. Do they ever win a championship if Ray Allen doesn't hit that 3 out of the corner? They probably don't.
If Chris Bosh doesn't get that rebound.
Yeah, think about it. Exactly. So if you look at Mike, you can think about, does Michael Jordan have 6 rings? If Bobby Hansen doesn't hit a jumper, Steve Kerr doesn't hit a jumper, John Paxson doesn't hit a jumper, if Horace Grant doesn't make the perfect pass, if Tony Kukoc, if, the answer is no. You have to have that star. Again, the Bulls are the perfect example. Mike was playing baseball. What happened the year he was out? TK, Tony Kukoc, hit an incredible shot at the buzzer, and they lost because they didn't have Mike. I compare Michael Jordan in importance to basketball team to Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's a really important player. They don't have a legit number 2. And Rudy Gobert is not the answer, and I see that. Mike says, what about Rudy Gobert? He can clearly be a number 2. He's not a number 2. He's a cleanup guy. Number 2 I'm telling you, and again, I know people don't want to embrace this. The number 2 guy on this team is not Mike Conley. It's not Bojan Bogdanovic. It's Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
Joe Ingles is an incredibly important player on this team.
Yeah.
His defense is underrated. He's the best three-point shooter in the NBA. And Royce O'Neal can't be counted on. Mike Conley's not healthy enough. And in my opinion, I really worry about him physically during the playoffs. The number 2 option on this Utah Jazz team is Joe Ingles. And he is really important to this team.
Yeah, and for the life of me, I don't understand why it's even been a conversation if he should be starting or not. I really don't get
and
it.
It's interesting because Bojan has really struggled. Bogey's really struggled.
Yeah.
Why would you not switch them? You have Jordan Clarkson as your 6th man. And I know there were 2 or 3 comments saying that Jordan Clarkson's the number 2. He's not the number 2.
Here's the thing, though. What we're doing right now, if we're being really, really honest about it, we're stretching to find a number 2. Because Joe Ingles on any other team is not a number 2. He's not.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
Well, I don't even agree with that. I think that Joe Ingles should be a corner 3-point shooter and a defensive guy. That is his ideal use on a championship caliber team.
Okay.
He is their Joe Harris. That's who he should be. Now, for the Jazz, he does a hell of a lot more than that because they ask him to do a hell of a lot more than that. And again, it's not a criticism of Joe Ingles. It is a criticism of a lack of aggressiveness in the free agent market and in the trade market. And that's why
in the draft market.
In the draft market. Dude, we could do we could literally do 60 minutes on how many times they've missed in the draft. I mean, that's a whole conversation on its own, and I think it definitely plays into this. But my point just is as you listen to this show and as we have this conversation, think about the names that we're talking about. We're legitimately sitting here talking about how for the Utah Jazz, a team that has NBA Finals aspirations, is rolling out Joe Ingles as their number 2.
Yeah. Excellent point by Will. Will says you guys have the luxury of not being Jazz fans. You weren't born and raised here. I actually appreciate that. Yeah, we're not homers.
Yeah.
We have the luxury of calling it down the middle as we see it. And the struggles of this team are real. James in Australia, if the Jazz fall in the playoffs, do you think there will be major changes to the roster? I do.
It will be chaos for this organization. Let's not that I think this will happen, but let's just say hypothetically, if they were to get bounced in the first round, dude, I mean, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to have that conversation because I think there would be obviously the Rudy contract would come into play. And then I think the conversation around, hey, who are we moving? What are we doing to get better? And you can't tell me that Donovan Mitchell would not start talking about free agency and finding another team. They cannot get bounced in the first round.
And again, I talked about this yesterday, and a lot of people asked about this. I'm telling you, if they don't win a championship, you have to trade Rudy Gobert. It's not optional. Mm-hmm. You have to, because Rudy is so limited offensively. And everybody's like, well, he gives you a double-double. That's great. But if 3 balls are going in, how effective is Rudy Gobert? Mm-hmm. Much less effective than he is when they miss, right? He's not a guy that you can do much more than alley-oop to him, throw him a lob and have him throw it down, which is great. He's very good at that. But he's not a guy that you can low post or back to the basket. That's not his game. He has 0 jump shot. In my opinion, if they don't win, if they go out in the first round, I mean, all bets are off. There's nobody. Yeah. If they win a playoff series, you can make the argument that this was improvement. If they go out in the first round, and I know this is probably heresy, I know that this is probably craziness. Mm-hmm. If they go out in the first round, what do you say to Quinn Snyder? Probably going to be the NBA Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I don't think that.
I'm not saying you fire him. But if you go out in the first round 3 times in a row,
yeah, that's a difficult conversation to have for sure. I think it's warranted, but I think it's difficult because you're again, we keep coming back to the same damn thing.
Yes, we do.
Hey, Quinn, you went out 3 years in a row in the first round. Okay, well, give me more on the roster, and then maybe I won't go out in the first round. I mean, I've sat here and dominated the whole season, and then when we start playing half-court basketball, what happens? And you can't tell me that Quinn Snyder, Ryan Smith, and Dennis Lindsey haven't been in a room talking about this roster and how it's not going to match up well against the best teams in the NBA. You can't tell me that hasn't happened. So,
and here's the question that I would ask. If you had an attacking beast number 2 option, even if it was a point guard, even if Mike Conley somehow, You snapped your fingers and you turned into De'Aaron Fox, let's say.
Turn him into Reggie Jackson.
Turn him into a guy that every time you give him the ball, it's going in the hole.
Yeah.
No matter what the moment is. Like, that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out. And listen, we should probably stay in the moment. I think this team's going to win a playoff series, so I think 99% of the people on this roster are going to be back, right? But at some point, you're going to have to ask yourself, who are we, where are we, and where are we capable of going? Because right now, the Utah Jazz are a good team that's not great, in my opinion. What are they capable of? They're capable of winning a playoff series. You're in the Western Conference. Round 2 essentially is the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
From the first round, you should be able to win a series if you're the number 1 seed. Home court advantage, I think the best home court advantage in the NBA.
Well, remember a couple years ago when it was Warriors-Lakers. I mean, everybody called that the NBA Finals, when LeBron's Lakers went up against the Dubs. Everybody said, hey, that's the NBA Finals right there,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's absolutely true.
And Illert, Gnurk, and I are going to disagree on this. And Illert's a great listener, and I think he's one of our best basketball guys. But Illert, you and I totally disagree. He says there's so much offensive firepower with the Jazz, and you want more. Gobert will probably win DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
NBA teams don't want to play defense anymore. If you want to trade anyone, trade on the wings. No, you don't trade on the wings. And this is not a league of big men. Mm-hmm. Where is Shaquille O'Neal in 2021? There isn't one.
Here's the difference, though, and this is where the rubber meets the road. Shaquille O'Neal would still dominate today because
Correct.
he actually has an offensive game. This is the problem, and this is what Jazz fans don't like to hear, and I'm sorry, but Rudy Gobert is so limited offensively to what he can actually do. You're literally playing 4-on-5 offensively because Rudy Gobert is not a threat to his defender.
And look at how they use him. And it's a great point by Mikey. He says Rudy Gobert is nothing more than a pick and roll piece.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
It's a great way to say it.
I agree. And Mikey's one of the biggest Jazz fans we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Rudy Gobert's best value on offense is pick and roll and, hey, I'm going to run to the rim, throw me a lob, and I'll see if I can do it. I'll see if I'm open to dunk it. The problem is against Joel Embiid, what did we learn? There is no pick and roll, throw it to the rim against Joel Embiid, right? All I'm saying is I'm not saying Rudy sucks. I'm not saying he's terrible. The way this roster is constructed, if you want Rudy Gobert to stay on the roster, you had better go and get a Bradley Beal. You had better go and get a guy like a Russell Westbrook type scorer who you can hand the ball to and you know every time it's going in.
Yeah.
You need a consumer in the number 2 spot. Donovan's getting his ass kicked on a nightly basis because he plays above the rim. He's having to be very dynamic on the break, both offensively and defensively. You're asking too much out of one guy. And anytime you're that reliant on one guy, I just think you're asking for a trouble. Don Wins, good morning, Don Wins. He says, you two are very articulate. Thanks so much for having clips to listen to. You're welcome. We cut up every conversation. It's in our channel. And by the way, if you're new to this show, and I know we have a ton of new listeners today, if you're new to this show, please hit subscribe. We are giving away an Xbox S Series console when we hit 500 subscribers. All you have to do is subscribe to the show, and yes, we will. Betty's asking if we'll ship internationally. Yes, we will ship internationally. So if you're in Europe or Asia, wherever you might be, Australia, for our guy James Knight,
Subscribe to the channel. You're getting it.
Take a screenshot on your phone or a picture on your phone. Post it on my Twitter feed and post it on Twitter and tag Jake and I. I am the Monty Show, Monty, the Monty Show. Jake is SLC Supercars. This is an amazing conversation, by the way. Austin Parkin says the Jazz are quintessential glass cannons. They can shoot threes very well, but if opponents shut down the three, or the shot just isn't falling, they have nothing else to respond with.
As much as I hate it, I gotta agree with it.
How many times have we said that?
Listen, I want to be clear. When we talk about this issue for the Jazz, it's not that I take joy in the fact that they're frankly a one-dimensional team on offense, but that's just the facts of the case. And again, not trying to beat a dead horse here, but you're one-dimensional because you didn't add that wing player. And so I look at the additions in Ersan Ilyasova and Matt Thomas. Cool. We'll see you guys next season because you're not seeing any minutes in the postseason.
Yes.
So you really didn't add anybody. And I think that is the glass cannon analogy is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, Rick says, I gave you a thumbs up on YouTube. Thanks for the content. By the way, you live by the three, you die by the three. Ask James Harden and the Rockets.
Dude.
Well, we've talked about that scenario how many times on this show that James Harden, whatever it was, 0 for 29
0 for 27.
or whatever it was.
Yep.
Kevin Durant's gone through this. Steph Curry's gone through this. When you rely that heavily on the three, you tend to get in trouble. Ming Chan says, why do we need Rudy Gobert to play offense? Well, because you need, in the playoffs, and his value is that he is bigger and longer than just about anybody else on the court. So what you need from Rudy Gobert is just don't miss a rebound. And that he has a razor thin margin for error. He has to get every rebound, and he has to do that cleanup business. It's vital. JC says, if I win the Xbox, I will also donate. # pass it forward. Wow, that would be amazing.
Appreciate that, bro.
Illik Gnurk says, well, if you want to trade Gobert, who will you get instead? Here's the other issue, Jake, that I see with this roster. If you're gonna trade Rudy Gobert, you're going to reshape things in general. I think if you trade Gobert, you also have to move on from Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yes,
and because I think you're not going to go and get another big man. You're going to go and get a power forward.
Yeah,
you're going to go and get a guy who can impact you high and low.
Julius Randle.
That type of player is what this team is so desperate for. You need a guy like. And I'm not saying they're going to trade Gobert for Joel Embiid, but you need an inside-out guy. The reason that Joel Embiid is so dominant is because he can shoot the three, he can shoot the elbow, and he can dunk in your face. That's what this Jazz team misses because Bogdanovic is just not athletic enough anymore. He cannot defend, and he doesn't believe the three ball's going in every time he shoots.
Even if they went and got Jared Allen, I mean, Jared Allen would be a decent little addition. But it's like you're not going to trade Rudy straight up for another player again because of the contract. So that wouldn't work. You'd have to, you would have to find a way to balance the money and everything like that. So to be honest with you, I think the Rudy Gobert trade, I don't think it's a conventional trade at all. I think it looks like you're going to move him
for multiple pieces,
and I would be surprised if that included a big man. You'd probably have to go and sign a big man in the free agent market, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the other thing that I think is really important that we need to talk about here is rosters are made in totality. Championships are won with a well-rounded roster. I think what you're in, and again, let's talk about the Lakers last night. Right? They get AD back. He plays 17 minutes. He goes 2 of 10 from the floor. They lose by 5 to Dallas, who's one of the better offensive teams in this league right now. But what did you see? You saw balanced scoring. You saw Trez have a big game. Cantavius have another big game who's really stepped up. You're seeing Dennis Schroeder now looking to be as healthy as he's going to be, getting to the basket. They're a well-rounded roster if AD and LeBron are healthy. Now, they're saying LeBron's a week to 10 days out. He's actually on the floor doing basketball activities. So you look at that, you add AD and LeBron back to a well-rounded roster. Now the Jazz are going to have to struggle to beat that team.
Yeah.
Because they've got 5 guys, legit 5 guys on the Lakers. Assuming AD and LeBron are healthy.
And their games are 100%.
Because, by the way, AD did not look even 50% of who he usually is. But if you have AD, you have LeBron. You have Kuzma. You have Trez. You have Schroeder. The list is endless. You have Cantavius Caldwell-Pope. You have 5, 6, 7 guys.
And then you coming off the bench, you've got Caruso. You've got, Kyle Kuzma again. You've got
you just have depth.
You have Ben McLemore coming off the bench to give you a quick 10 from 3.
By the way, how did Houston not get more for him?
Yeah, it's
all he's done for the Lakers is hit threes.
Yeah, and again, I'll say it again. It is incredibly motivating to play with LeBron James because you know that you have a chance to win a ring, and that's probably going to be his only chance to win a ring.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their scoring last night, Trez gave them 14 points and 6 boards off the bench. 29 out of Cantavius, 25 out of Schroeder, 14 out of Andre Drummond.
Let's stop right
again,
there.
Andre Drummond.
Stop right there, though. What if the Jazz had Schroeder instead of Conley? What would we be talking about?
And Mike Conley's a good player. I mean, he's an elite three-point shooter, an elite distributor, but he isn't the quicks anymore. He's not that young, aggressive, atomic guard that a guy like Dennis Schroeder. And I'm telling you, and I know that people undervalue him, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is the reason the Lakers won a championship.
Yeah, his shooting made all the difference.
I mean, and I'm hoping Jordan Clarkson fills that role. But Clarkson, again, has been so cold, and now he's picked it back up.
Call it what it is, dude. Call it what it is. The guy disappears in big games.
Yeah.
Go back and look at the game logs. He disappears.
And my question is, why is Andre Drummond a Laker and not a Utah Jazz man?
Because
that's a huge upgrade to Derek Favors. You can
huge upgrade to Derek Favors. I think he contends for a starting spot on this team. Are you kidding me?
Well, and I think he would be a legitimate number 4 for this team.
Yeah.
And it just, whatever it is, you just want flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think that the Jazz don't have that. Illert says, it's not that we're a trash team. If you ask me, the Jazz are one piece away from winning a championship.
I 100% agree with that.
That's what we're saying.
Quintessential one piece away
But you
team.
know who that one piece is? It's Aaron Gordon in Denver. It's Andre Drummond in the Lakers. It's Bradley Beal
That's
with
the sad
Washington.
part. That's the shame in all this. There was a stockpile of dudes you could have gone and got.
It's all these guys that were available that they didn't go and get.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's either of the Morris twins.
Think about this. Imagine if you would have picked up Aaron Gordon and the Jamal Murray injury still happened.
Oh, now you're in a
now
dominant
you're
position.
in a great position. If you see the Nuggets, you're in a great position. If you see the Clippers, but you didn't do that.
There have been over the last 2 seasons. There have been so many buyout contenders that this team should have aggressive. And already, Mikey, I see your comment. They're not coming to Utah. I understand that Andre Drummond wanted to play with LeBron. He said that, but you didn't even make a phone call.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, Aaron Gordon, he went to Denver. Are you telling me he's not going a little further west and coming to Utah?
So that sentiment, and I'm not even joking or being facetious or anything. That sentiment of, well, these guys aren't coming to Utah. Okay, well then you've lost before you've even stepped on the court. Then you've already lost the game. You have to at least make the phone call, have the conversation, do everything you can possibly do to get that player. And if it just comes down to, hey, I'm gonna go be a Laker instead of a Jazz, okay, fine. But we did everything that we could do.
Yeah,
and I don't feel like they did that.
Absolutely agree. James Knight with the tweet on his computer. Love that, man. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Team Bieber hits me up with a picture of him watching our show. Appreciate that.
Let's go.
Way to go. You know what's interesting is also on Twitter, Kevmo P. Okay. I don't want to know.
Who the fuck is that guy?
You know, Kevmo P says, Jazz fans are always so unable to hear the truth. Thin skin. He said, I'm an Orlando Magic fan.
Damn.
Aaron Gordon has a lot left. Yeah, Aaron Gordon has a lot left. Mikey, Michael, and Mike today. Mike from Dallas. Mike from Dallas says the Lakers almost beat us. They almost did beat you.
Yeah.
Almost doesn't count. If AD and LeBron played, but they didn't, if my aunt were my uncle, she'd have.
But I think, but listen. But I think what he's saying in that comment though is that, hey, they almost beat us without LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when LeBron and AD come back?
Yep. Sakshay Jazz, good morning to you. Rudy is untouchable right now. I would agree with that. Austin Parkins says, I hope it works out for the Jazz since they are my team and we were cheated out of 2 championships in the 90s.
Hey, man.
Did I miss something? How were the Jazz cheated out of 2 championships?
I don't know. I saw some clean-ass plays, man.
I don't know what he's talking about. By the way, did I mention my license plate is flu game? I just don't. Parkins says, I just don't see it the way this team is constructed. Agree. Sean says, Drummond was a steal for the Lakers. Yes. Brandon Whiteside, what's up? Good to see you. He says, who would you have given up? Come on, this isn't like 2K. We would win if we have Giannis right now. Well, it's not. Listen, and I know, Brandon, I think you and I have had this exact discussion. This goes back to any of the numerous draft picks that they've missed on. This goes back to why isn't Gordon Hayward with the Utah Jazz? It's not because he went to Boston. It's because when he was a restricted free agent, you allowed him to go and take visits. Where did he go? San Antonio, I think?
San Antonio.
Offered him a sheet or something. Like he goes, you allow guys to leave. If Gordon Hayward's on this team, he probably never breaks his leg, right? You're a different team. If you had Gordon Hayward instead of Bojan Bogdanovic,
Yeah.
you're a championship team right now.
Yeah.
You have a 5-7 game lead in the West, but you don't, so you don't. It's not who would you have given up and why don't we have Giannis, right? It's the fact that you had to turn Trey Lyles into something, which thankfully you turned that into Spida Mitchell.
It's embarrassing, though, that was ever a thing.
It's all of these draft picks that you've missed on. That's what my struggle is. And, I Dante Exum. It is Rodney Hood. It is not having Devin Booker. That's the guy that you should. If Devin Booker was Royce O'Neal, how much better is this team right now? Are you kidding me?
I agree. I completely agree. The draft thing, listen, the draft thing is always going to be a pain point for the Utah Jazz fan base because it's just been such a they've handled it terribly.
The problem is then you turn around and we have this conversation about free agents
and they've done nothing.
And they're like, well, but nobody will come here. Well, then don't be shitty in the draft.
Yeah.
If you can't go and sign a guy because free agents don't want to come to Utah, well, then you better not draft Dante Exum and have him completely be a bust.
Why did Kevin Durant go to Golden State?
Well, he wanted to win.
And how did they build a winning team? They
drafted
that.
Through the draft.
They went and drafted Steph Curry from Davidson when everybody said, oh, this guy's too small. He can't do it. And now what do we have? Potentially.
But listen, they drafted Steph, Clay, and Draymond.
Yeah.
Those are all draft picks from the Warriors.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't accidental. And this is, anyway, the point, look at Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City, Seattle Supersonics, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden.
And they found a way to mess that up.
We're all on that team together, and they screwed it up. Right? So you either win in the draft or you lose in the draft. And I look at the Lakers. The Lakers are an anomaly because the Lakers, for many years, it was Magic, then it was Kobe. Okay, those are their guys. But the Lakers have the money to spend and go and buy LeBron James, go buy Anthony Davis, go buy Dennis Schroeder, go buy all these other guys. But guess what? They're role players. Cantavius, you look at Kyle Kuzma is probably the best example.
Mm-hmm.
Utah running you, Kyle Kuzma. That's an important role player for them. How did they get Anthony Davis, though? They sold Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball to New Orleans.
And Josh Hart.
And Josh Hart, 3 of their own draft picks, turned him into Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
The draft is critical, and the Jazz have lost at the draft every single year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Matt Thomas is our Steph Curry. Don't worry. Well,
that's what they want to tell you, but glad to see he's not going to be in the game.
JC says there's no MJ to stop us this year. Well, I don't know. Do you understand who you're going to have to get by? You're going to have to get by Denver. You're going to have to get by the Lakers, the Clippers. I mean, the Suns are a terrible matchup.
Nikola Jokic, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Who else we got?
Has Paul George ever played better basketball than he's played the last 2 weeks?
No, he hasn't, but he's going to have to prove that he can do it in the postseason
right?
because he always falls off.
I mean, there may not be an MJ, but good luck getting out of the West. Don't worry about MJ. He played in the East.
Yeah,
worry about getting out of the West.
Bro, MJ's name is LeBron James right now, so you might want to worry about that.
Oh, my God. Anyway.
Hey, just saying, I think we got our first screenshot over here on Twitter.
Oh, you think? Why? What are you saying, man?
I got Team Bieber over here.
Yeah, well, that's one I just read. Team
is
Bieber.
it?
Yeah, he tagged us both. Team Bieber is our first entry. James Knight, you got to tag. Okay, so let me go over the Xbox rules.
Yeah.
Let me go over the Xbox rules. So now that we're at 400, I think we're at 410 subscribers, whatever it is. I don't remember. 400.
I'm just telling you guys that you need to get on this because this is not going to last long. I'm just telling you.
So, well, here's what you have to do. First of all, right now, hit subscribe and give us a thumbs up on this video. Really appreciate it. Second of all, to win the Xbox, when we get to 500 subscribers, we're going to give away an Xbox S Series. We have it. It's ready to go. What you're going to have to do is take a shot of yourself showing that you're subscribed to our channel. So if it's the homepage where it says subscribed, take a picture of that, either screenshot it, whatever you want to do. And then you have to tag us. So it has to say at the Monty Show and at SLC Supercars. Do that. Show us you're subscribed. We're going to put your name in a bucket. When we get to 500 subscribers, that next day we're going to pull a name out of that bucket, and we're going to give away an Xbox S Series.
That's simple.
Those are the only rules. And you have to be, when we give away the Xbox, you have to be subscribed.
And by the way, should be clear, if you're already subscribed, then that's cool. All you got to do is just do the screenshot,
And you're good
that's
to go.
cool.
You're good to go.
It's basically the first 500 people who are subscribed to the channel are going to be in this giveaway. So if you're subscribed already and you've been listening for a long time, just take a screenshot,
Yes.
tag us. That's it. It's really simple.